Welcome back, everybody. It's Zach here, bringing you guys another fantasy football video. This one I'll be going over the waiver wire ahead of Week 5. I'll go position by position, so I'm just telling you guys which players I think are worth adding. I'll touch on fab a little bit, but in general, I try to avoid specific fab numbers just because it's so league dependent for me. Because obviously, if you're in a 12-team league, if you really need a running back, versus if you're in a 10-team league and don't need a running back, then like Kareem Hunt this week is going to be a very different fab value. So if you guys have specific fab questions, you're more than welcome to let me know in the comments. I'm happy to answer them there. Because of any specific ad drop questions as well, let me know in the comments. I'm happy to help you guys out. Really fun to see what your rosters are looking like and what kind of decisions you guys have to make there. So yeah, I think we actually have a really big waiver wire week. I think there's a lot of names that are super important. I think personally, I think this is the best week for waiver wires so far this season. So be willing to spend a little bit more than we were previously. I think there's a lot of names that I think are going to be worth investing in this week. Starting off the quarterback position here, Sam Darnold just looks really good. It's tough to ignore that at this point. We're through 4 weeks. They're 4-0. They've looked absolutely fantastic. He did have some uncharacteristic or maybe characteristic throws in the second half. Had a couple of turnover-worthy plays. Did throw a pick. But in general, he continues to get it done. They dominated the Packers. He looks really good. And having Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison out there certainly doesn't hurt. Aaron Jones has looked great as well. TJ Hawkinson is going to return at some point. I think Sam Darnold at this point is a guy that we can view as a fringe top 12 quarterback the rest of the way. Geno Smith looks awesome again this week. Seattle just gave Detroit everything they could handle. Put up 29 points. If not for a ticky-tacky offensive pass interference call, this game could have actually gone pretty differently. So Seattle looked awesome. He's got plenty of weapons, and they play the Giants in Week 5. I think Geno's a guy that we could certainly consider streaming there. Justin Fields plays Dallas next week, which is a little bit scary, but we saw what the upside is for Fields is in games the Steelers are trailing. Over 300 total yards, 3 total touchdowns. The upside really is there if the Steelers find themselves behind. And, the Cowboys are a team that could get a lead on the Steelers, so Week 5 could be another repeat here. Without Micah Parsons and DeMarcus Lawrence as well, there should be some opportunity here for Fields to put up some decent numbers. The pass rush won't really be there, which is generally what he struggles with. So we'll see what happens. We'll see if Fields even gets to start in Week 5. There's, possibility here of Russ starting in Week 5. So we'll see what happens there. But until Fields is benched, I think he's a solid streaming option. Now, at running back, we've got a lot of big names here. I think guys that are definitely worth taking an eye on here. So I'll start things off with Chase Brown, who does seem to be taking over in Cincinnati. He's probably rostered in your league, but I was able to pick him up in 2 leagues last week before this week. So he has hit some waiver wires in leagues. Just keep an eye out. He's getting about 50% of the touches in this backfield. Just looks like he's clearly the guy with more juice between him and Zach Moss. Had 2 goal line touchdowns this week as well, which is not what I would have expected this year. I would have thought that Chase Brown would have maybe gotten the between the 20s work and gotten some of the third down work, but I would have expected Zach Moss to get the majority of the goal line work. We didn't see that here, so knowing that he can get those opportunities is huge. Does have a tough matchup against Baltimore in Week 5, so he's not necessarily a guy that I'm picking up super excited to start in Week 5, but I think the rest of the season, Chase Brown has a lot of value. Kareem Hunt seems like he's a guy that definitely needs to be a priority ad right now. Might be the RB1 in Kansas City. In fact, he probably is. CEH will return in Week 5, potentially. Not really worried about that. Carson Steele fumbled in this game again. It's the second fumble in 4 games. I'd be shocked to see them go back to the rookie there. Samaje Perine's not doing anything to his man touches. And Kareem Hunt looked really good. Knows the offense. He's been in Kansas City before. Kareem Hunt, especially, he's going to be super necessary to this offense without Rashee Rice. Going to catch passes, going to get goal line work. I think Kareem Hunt honestly might be a top 20 back the rest of the way. Trey Sermon might get a few weeks as the lead running back in Indianapolis. We saw Jonathan Taylor leave the game with a high ankle sprain. They're calling it mild, but who knows what that's going to be. Normally a high ankle sprain. Those high ankle sprains are tricky. It's normally a few weeks. We've seen Jonathan Taylor battle some ankle injuries in the past as well. So Sermon absolutely needs to be added, if nothing else, as a handcuff. And I bet at a minimum he's going to start for us in Week 5. Rico Dowdle, if he's still on waiver wires, he needs to be rostered. He's the lead running back in Dallas. He's a guy that's going to have a lot of work going forward, and it's just a matter of whether or not that's going to be valuable at all for Dallas. So we'll see what happens there, but Dowdle is the running back we want to own in Dallas. Tank Bigsby needs to be owned as well. Continues to get more and more work over Travis Etienne. Etienne left the game a little bit in Week 4 with an injury. Hasn't played well. Tank Bigsby's honestly looked better to my eye, which is kind of weird to say given how awful he looked last season. But Bigsby's a talented player at this point, and this offense needs help. So I think Bigsby's going to get more and more work going forward. Tyler Algier, he's an elite handcuff option. We saw him actually out-touch Bijan Robinson this week. I know Bijan was dealing with a bit of an injury coming into this game, so don't panic about Bijan here, but Algier absolutely needs to be rostered. If something were to happen to Bijan, Algier would absolutely be a monster. Alexander Madison seems to be the running back to own in Las Vegas going forward. We saw Zamir White fumble again. I don't think they can trust him. Alexander Madison's looked much better. He's the guy they're throwing passes to. He's also kind of gotten the goal line work as well. So if there are valuable touches to be had in this Raider backfield, they're going to Alexander Madison. You got to be in a bad spot to want to start Alexander Madison, but he's a guy that you could definitely start in the pinch if you needed to. CEH, I mentioned that he could return in week 5 here for the Chiefs. Wouldn't spend anything on him really, but like he's been in the system. There's a chance that maybe they go to him over Kareem Hunt. I'd be really surprised to see it, so he doesn't necessarily need to be added, but just have to mention him. And then Roshan Johnson got goal line work this week. I know DeAndre Swift finally had a really good week this week, but Roshan did get the goal line touchdown. If he gets a hold on that role and then DeAndre Swift goes back to struggling, like it made sense to them to shift a little bit to Roshan before this week. Just DeAndre Swift maybe saved his job with his performance in week 4. So Roshan doesn't necessarily just need to go to bench or go to the waiver wires again. He's a guy that I think does need to be rostered because he's at least the backup in Chicago, and I still think there's a chance for him to play into more of a role going on the season. Next up at wide receiver here, again, a couple of big names I want to talk about. The big one for me is going to be Dontavian Wicks. The opportunity's now there now for him with Christian Watson going down with an ankle injury. It sounds like he's a candidate for IR, so we'll see what happens there. But if Christian Watson's going to miss a month, Dontavian Wicks is going to have the opportunity that we would hope he had to really just grab a stranglehold of this offense and be a real integral part of this offense here. Had 13 targets in week 4. That is absolutely phenomenal for the guy. I know he only had 5 receptions, but he did score twice. The efficiency wasn't there, but he's a really talented player. Giving him that full opportunity is going to be huge. They have a matchup against the Rams in week 5. That's a really great matchup. The Rams could not cover anybody. Wicks is one of he's going to be a perimeter receiver for the Packers in week 5. The Rams are the best matchup in the NFL for opposing perimeter wide receivers. I think Dontavian Wicks is a guy you can just grab and start until Christian Watson comes back. Josh Downs, he's just a really good player. I know it's tough to know what the quarterback situation is going to be like in Indianapolis, but we saw him flash as a rookie last season. All the reports out of camp were that he looked like their best receiver in camp, and he went down with an injury. Obviously missed some time before coming back last week, but looked really phenomenal last week. I know nobody started him last week just with the bad matchup against Pittsburgh. You got Anthony Richardson struggling, but if we get Joe Flacco going forward, at least for a week or two, Josh Downs should be really good. And even with Anthony Richardson, maybe we're going to see Jonathan Taylor miss some time. They might have to lean on the passing game a little bit more, and Josh Downs might just be the number 1 wide receiver in Indianapolis. Xavier Legette, he's a talented player. There's a ton of opportunity there in Carolina with Adam Thielen down. This offense looks good with Andy Dalton under center. I think Legette needs to be rostered, and a guy that you can start in your flex if you need to. Wan'Dale Robinson doesn't look fantastic, but if you want to PPR scam your way to points, he had 11 receptions last week. A guy you can play in full PPR formats going forward, so he does need to be on rosters. Trey Tucker looks really talented for the Las Vegas Raiders. Devontae Adams is week to week with a hamstring injury. I also just don't know if he wants to be there, although they're 2-2 now, so they've got an opportunity going forward. But Trey Tucker is a good player, I think. He's the wide receiver 2 in this offense for me. And if Adams is going to miss more time, he's the one I'm going to play, not Jacoby Myers. Darnell Mooney. Jokingly, I say he's the Falcons wide receiver 1 here, but he does have more receiving yards on the season than Drake London. I think he's not the guy that's going to get the goal line work, obviously. Drake London's going to be the guy that they'll use when they get into the 20s, but Darnell Mooney does seem to be the deep threat in the offense. They're manufacturing touches for him as well, and he's just a good player. Kyle Pitts is nowhere to be found, so it really is like Darnell Mooney, Drake London, and Bijan Robinson is the 3 players they're really throwing the ball to. So Mooney needs to be rostered. He's a guy that you can flex going forward if you need to. Romeo Doubs for the same reason as Dontavian Wicks. Good player. Going to be one of the 3 wide receivers in the field all the time with Christian Watson down. I think Romeo Doubs is a flex asset going forward as well. Sky Moore, not really interested, but like with the Rashee Rice injury, somebody's going to need to step up. It won't be Sky Moore. He's not going to do it, but you could look at Justin Watson. Xavier Worthy is obviously part of the opportunity as well, but Worthy's definitely not on waivers. So someone's going to have to step up there. I don't think Sky Moore or Justin Watson are going to. It's probably just going to be Kelsey and Worthy, but if you want to take a flyer on Sky Moore, like, post-hype sleeper, I guess, it's worth mentioning his name. I don't think there's anything there, though. And then Michael Wilson, he's moderately involved. I think you could use him as a pinch. I know in the pinch here. I know the Cardinals didn't look great this week, but Michael Wilson is the clear wide receiver 2 in this offense. Did fumble at the end of the game, obviously not great. The game was over anyway, but I think he's a good player. Has a lot of opportunity. If maybe we saw Trey McBride miss another game, I think Wilson could be a guy you could flex if you needed to. Next up, moving on to tight end here. The big name for me is going to be Tucker Kraft. His usage was way up. He's clearly the tight end 1 in this offense over Luke Musgrave, so it's good that we have some clarity there. And then again, with Christian Watson going down, there is more just opportunity in general in this offense. Not that Christian Watson was like a huge target guy, so it's not really taking a lot away from Tucker Kraft with him on the field. But Tucker Kraft looked really good last week. This is an offense that I expect to be really good with Jordan Love under center. And with how bad the tight end position is, I think Tucker Kraft absolutely needs to be rostered as a guy that we could start going forward. Zach Ertz, he's involved enough. Like, honestly, at the tight end position, we're looking for 5 for 50. Zach Ertz is basically the best at giving you 5 for 50 right now. He's giving you just enough. He's giving you production at the tight end position, and honestly, getting some points at the tight end spot is about all you can ask for these days. And then Taysom Hill, I hate to mention him, but if you can play him at the tight end spot, he's obviously got touchdown upside every single week. Scored twice this week on like 15 snaps. He's a guy that if you need to, if your tight end position sucks, you can pick Taysom Hill up and play him and hope he falls in the end zone. So he has to be mentioned here. And last but not least, we got some defenses I'll highlight. I will start things off with Minnesota. They go to the New York Jets in Week 5. Minnesota's looked like one of the best defenses in the NFL so far this season. They play the Jets, who have honestly looked like one of the lesser offenses in the NFL this season as well. I know they played Denver in Week 4, who Denver at this point might be a really legit defense after what they've done to Tampa Bay and then New York over the last 2 weeks. But New York has not exactly been impressive. Minnesota just shut down the Packers. I know the Packers ended up with a big stat line, but it was mostly garbage time. This Vikings defense absolutely clamped down, so they'd be my favorite ad there. The Seahawks, I know they got absolutely torched by the Lions, but they're missing a lot of pieces on defense this week. They play the Giants in Week 5. That's a very winnable game for the Seahawks. The Giants are not a good offense. Malik Neighbors might be banged up in that one. If the Giants don't have Malik Neighbors, it's going to be absolutely brutal for them. And even if they do, I think Seattle's still a solid start. Denver, the Broncos need to be in consideration here. They've looked really good on defense the last several weeks, and they play the Raiders in Week 5, who are not good on offense at all, so you can certainly play Denver. And then right on the other side of the ball, the Raiders should get Max Crosby back in Week 5, and they play the Broncos, who just are going to play the Broncos in Week 5. The Broncos did not look great on offense either this week. At one point, halfway through the game, Bo Nix had -7 passing yards. They won the game, but it was not because their offense was good, so the Broncos are certainly a team we can target defenses against as well. So that'll do it for the waiver wire in Week 5. Up next, I'll be going over some trade targets. I'll try and highlight some players that I've been looking to buy low and sell high on. As we get further and further on into the season, we're going to have a lot more information. We're going to be able to give you guys a lot more specific advice based off of how your teams are performing. Like if you're 4-0, you're trading for a lot different kind of players than you are if you're 0-4 right now. Like if you're 0-4, you don't want to be trading for guys like A.J. Brown, Cooper Kupp, Puka Nacua. Like you can't trade for those injury kind of guys. So it's just an example. Same thing if you're 4-0, maybe you want to target those guys that are not necessarily going to do a lot this week, but are guys that are going to help you down the stretch. So we'll be able to cater more and more to how your roster's shaping up, how your season's going on as we go forward. So stay tuned for those videos. It's really fun for me to make those. I personally make a ton of trades in all of my leagues. It's a really fun video for me to make every week, and I really do act on the advice I'm giving you guys there. So stay tuned for that one. There will also be a start-sit video, or 2 of them this week. I'll go over every single game this week, going over who should be in your starting lineups this week, and then there will also be the Sunday morning live stream, 1 hour before the games kick off in the morning. I'll go over last-minute injury updates, help you guys get your roster set, and get you guys ready to roll for Week 5. So if you want access to all that, just make sure you subscribe to the channel and you click the bell so you get notifications when more videos come out. If you made it this far in the video, please give it a thumbs up. It really helps me out quite a bit. And other than that, I'll catch you with the next one. Thanks, guys. Peace. Thank you guys for watching. If you haven't already, please be sure to subscribe to the channel, like the video, check out these other videos here if you haven't. If you want more content, please feel free to follow me on Twitter at RealSteelFFB. I'll be more active on there as the season goes on. Thanks. Catch you later.